5 traps that keep Christians from God's plan. As believers, we all desire to walk in God's will and fulfill His purpose for our lives. However, sometimes we can get caught up in certain things that hinder us from achieving our spiritual goals. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 traps that can prevent Christians from following God's plan. Number 1, doubt and unbelief. Doubt and unbelief can hinder us from experiencing God's best because they prevent us from trusting in His promises and taking action based on His word. When we doubt God's promises, we begin to question His ability and His willingness to see us through. This can lead to fear and inaction, which can cause us to miss out on the opportunities that God has planned for us. For example, in Mark 9:24, it says, "He believed the Lord, but when he was alone, he questioned himself, 'Why did the disciples not cast it out?'" Here, the father doubted Jesus' ability to heal his son. As a result, he questioned himself and began to blame others instead of trusting in Jesus' power. Doubt can cause us to blame others, complain, worry, and even become fearful. It can also lead to discouragement, apathy, and even despair. But we must remember that God is faithful, and He desires for us to believe in Him and His promises. As believers, we need to cultivate a spirit of faith and trust in God so that we can walk in His plan for our lives. Number 2, disobedience. Disobedience to God's word and principles can also hinder us from following His plan. When we choose to ignore God's voice or disobey His commands, we stray from the path that He has laid out for us. Disobedience can result in missed opportunities, broken relationships, and a weakened testimony. In the Old Testament, the Israelites frequently disobeyed God's instructions, which led to negative consequences. For example, in Numbers 13 and 14, the Israelites sent spies into Canaan, but when they returned, the people became afraid and doubtful, and they disobeyed God by refusing to enter into the Promised Land. Their disobedience resulted in them wandering in the desert for 40 years. Similarly, Christians who disobey God's word can expect negative consequences in their lives. It is essential to remember that God is worthy of our obedience because He knows what is best for us. We must choose to obey His voice and follow His instructions so that we can experience the blessings that He has planned for us. Number 3, fear. Fear can also be a significant obstacle that prevents Christians from pursuing God's plan. Fear of failure, rejection, or persecution can cause us to hesitate and ultimately miss out on what God has prepared for us. In Joshua 1:9, Joshua was afraid because he had to lead the Israelites into the Promised Land. But God reassured him, saying, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." God reminded Joshua that He would be with him, and He promised to help him overcome any obstacles. Similarly, God promises to be with us and strengthen us when we face challenges. We must choose to trust in God and believe in His promises so that we can overcome our fears and walk in His plan. Number 4, lack of prayer and Bible study. Prayer and Bible study are essential for staying connected to God and understanding His will. Without regular prayer and Bible study, we may miss out on the guidance and direction that we need to follow God's plan. In Isaiah 5:13, the prophet Isaiah warns about those who reject God's word so that they can have their own way. These people are like a vine that has been rejected and is worthless. If we refuse to listen to God's voice through prayer and His word, we may end up wasting our time and energy on pursuits that do not align with His will. Regular prayer and Bible study can help us develop a deeper relationship with God, enabling us to hear His voice more clearly and understand His plan for our lives. Number 5, worldliness. Worldliness can also hinder us from following God's plan because it can cause us to prioritize earthly pleasures over spiritual growth. When we become overly concerned with the things of this world, such as money, fame, or material possessions, we may neglect our spiritual responsibilities and miss out on the opportunities that God has planned for us. in James chapter 4:4. It says, "You adulterers and adulteresses, do not know that the friendship of the world is enmity with God?" The passage warns against forming close relationships with people who do not share our values and priorities. When we become too friendly with worldly people, we may begin to compromise our values and make decisions that are not in line with God's will. To avoid this trap, we must be intentional about the friends we choose to spend time with and the activities we participate in. We should seek out people who are spiritually minded and who can encourage us to grow in our faith. In conclusion, there are various traps that can hinder Christians from following God's plan. Doubt and unbelief, disobedience, fear, lack of prayer and Bible study, and worldliness can all prevent us from experiencing God's best for our lives. However, we must remember that God is faithful and He desires for us to succeed. By cultivating faith, obedience, courage, a love for prayer and Bible study, and a commitment to holiness, we can avoid these traps and walk in the path that God has planned for us. May this video serve as a reminder for us to evaluate our lives and make necessary adjustments so that we can live out God's perfect will for our lives. If you enjoyed this message, please feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comment section below. Your feedback is valuable to us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more insightful Christian videos. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you.